if something happens and you suddenly need to use one of the other forwards in the back line, who are the forwards that can actually cover backline positions other than Kwacha?
That's tactics. Exactly, that's tactics.
So Jacques says that is tactics. Now, it's interesting because against the All Blacks, he was quite upfront with who he'd be able to use if he had an injury with the 7-1 split. So we know the Springboks are going with a 7-1 split where there will only be one back on the bench. Now, yes, I can hear that he's saying that it's tactics, but if you think about it, there's not much to be said if you look at the team. There is really only a few loose forwards that you can really stick in the back line. So it's obviously going to be among the forwards that he'd be able to use. Maybe a Dion Fourie can also slot into a back line. We know it's probably going to be Kwacha Smith if they ever have to go there. But I think it comes back to the point that how often lately has the Springboks had 2 injuries? Because if you go look at the last few games, it's not very often that they'd be knocked with 2 injuries in a game. Now, that doesn't mean it can't happen. But I think when he's talking tactics, I think this team probably said, look, guys, we're going through to the quarterfinals. And it doesn't really matter who we play in many ways. Because do we play the All Blacks? It's always going to be a tough game because the All Blacks probably know the Springboks the best and understand on any given day, even in a formed Springbok team, they can beat on any day. So they're going to be tough. And on the other side, if it's France, it's at home. These guys are going to come at it with everything they got. So it's also going to be tough. So it doesn't really, from the game point of view, obviously the Springboks will want to win the game. But from a risk point of view, there's no serious risk that because they're making this decision of a 7-1 split, that they can fall out of a World Cup or anything. So they've got the luxury of knowing that they're going to go through because they've won that game against Scotland. That is from the start what Jacques Nienaber said was the most important thing. So this has brought them to this decision where now they can gamble. So they're calling it a calculated risk. That's what he said in the press conference. It's a calculated risk. And I got to say, I understand how they reasoned this out. They said, look, okay, so what's the pros of this risk going 7-1? The pros are that we go with even a bigger front pack and we can do the same to Ireland as what we did in that game against the All Blacks. And we know the impact it had. It had a huge impact, excuse the pun, being these players being impact players and the new names like Nuke Squad coming around and, all these names for the new Bombsquad, which is a 7-1. And if you look at the pros, there's so much pros in it that they can really dominate up front, put the Irish totally on the back foot and kind of do something similar to what they did to the All Blacks. Because the All Blacks and the Irish do play a similar type fast game and they both need forward ball to really get their backs unlocked. If they're under a lot of pressure with those forwards, it can put them on the back foot. And if you go and look at the 7-1 split, that's exactly what they can do with this. Now, what is the cons? Well, the cons is they get more than one injury. They got to move a Kwacha Smith into like a back line or something of that sort, or maybe a Dion Fourie or someone, move a few players around. And again, the Springboks will show that, they're not scared to play any players out of their positions because they've put themselves into a position where they can still do this. I don't think they'll as easily go into a quarters or in any playoff game and make these decisions. It's that they have the freedom and it's good for rugby. And even if they lose a game and that's the con, it's not the end of the world for them. They know they've experimented and it didn't come off, because they were unlucky with 2 injuries. But if they don't, you go look at the percentages of how often the Springboks get 2 injuries in a game, both in the back line, and you'd see it's not all that much. So, looking at the percentages, then looking at the percentages where if they use their bomb squad and now this nuke squad, how often does that influence a game for them to win? A lot more. So obviously they'll go with that. And what I like about this is the Springboks are just putting some excitement in rugby. They're challenging the norms of rugby by saying they're going to try different things. Not concerned with only going always with the the traditional way of doing things. And I love that. I love that about Rassie and Jacques, and they both push the boundaries. And I'm sure we'll have the whole world up in arms if the Irish get smashed in this game, the same as what happened in the last game, where you even had commentators from all over the world complaining about this. Get used to it. This is Springbok type approach and psyche. They say it's calculated risk. I get that. In their minds, as the coaching staff, they've calculated the risk. They feel it's good and a good enough risk to take, and it's their tactics. So respect that. You got to respect that. But let's have a look at this team. So what I like is the Springboks are putting some faith in their players. If you look at someone like a Steven Kitshoff, he's not at a start, and they're saying in this big game, Kitshoff, we believe in you. You start with Malherbe, with Bongi and Bunambi as the hooker, and what a great, starting front back. No surprises there. Going with Eben Etzebeth and Franco Mostert. Again, no surprises on the locks. And then no surprises in that loose trio. Maybe on 8, many would have felt that Dwayne Vermeulen should be getting that 8 position just because he's more experienced. But going with Jasper Wiese, Siya Kolisi and Pieter-Steph du Toit. Now, Siya and Pieter-Steph just... it's the same as Eben Etzebeth at the moment. You cannot keep them out of this team if they are healthy to play. Now, where it gets interesting is in the back line, we'd still got a Faf de Klerk and a Mani Lebok. They have picked the same guys as they've gone with all along. But what I found still very interesting is we know that Andre Pollard has already played some rugby. And you would have almost expected that maybe they'd give him a little bit of a run in this game against Ireland, and maybe run him off the bench and have that safety that they have a kicker if it's a really close game. They've not gone that way, and I think it's just because, like I've said, from a tactical point of view, they say, look, if we lose this game, we still go through. So I don't know if they'll think about the game like this if they weren't in the position they were, but that's why they've decided to still first get Pollard more into the mix of things, and then let him play more of the minnow games, the second tier teams, to get himself totally match fit and prove himself to see where he's going to fit into the entire squad and what he will bring. Now, from a wing point of view, I think they went for the right wings. A lot of people would have said, oh no, but Kane and Moody should be there. It wouldn't be fair to the wingers if they use Kane and Moody on centre and then on wing again. Kane and Moody has kind of become a specialised centre, which means that is going to mean that in the bigger games they might feel that he's still too inexperienced and go for Delelendi and Krill like they did in this game. But I mean, say no more with Cheslin Colby and Kurtley Orange. So they've only shown how the class they are, the heart they have in their defence, and obviously you give those guys a little bit of space and they are away. And then what I love is, for a change, bringing in Damian Willems on the fullback and not Leroux. I think this guy is really good at fullback. I think he injects a lot of pace in that back line, and just his general distribution abilities and the pace he brings and the danger that he brings into this back line. I'm glad he's there. Then obviously looking at this bench. Now, let me just mention, some players might feel a little bit, it's tough, but I think they understand where the Springboks are coming from. For the first time in a long time, we don't see a Willie Leroux on the bench, and they're going for only one backline player, which is Kobus Reinig. And that's interesting because they were going for Grant Williams as the utility back. If it's not Willems, it used to be Grant Williams. Now starting to look at, Kobus Reinig. And it again shows you there's fairness within the squad selection to say, Kobus, you've put your hand up in the last game again, showing your versatility. I mean, he's got 2 of the records in the World Cup now for scoring the quickest tries in a game. He's a danger man. And the thing is, he's a utility guy who you can put up anywhere. Probably in some ways a little bit bigger built than a Grant, so you can really go play him in more positions on that back line. But then going for Kobus Reinig, and then going for obviously what they now call the Nuke Squad or the Bomb Squad +1, 7 forwards, which is then Dion Fourie in there, and then they're also playing Marco van Staden. So Marco van Staden finding himself on the bench more now because he's another option for that hooker position. So you might find that they use Marco van Staden as the hooker second half and not Dion Fourie, and bring Dion Fourie up in a loose forward position and as a backup for the back line. I don't know. Then Trevor Nyakane in there, good from the bench. We've got John Klein and Archie Snyman, both of those guys knowing the Irish so well, have played for Munster, Klein for Ireland. They will be really, really dangerous in the lineouts just because they kind of know the team so well. And then, Kwagga Smith, another fetcher, also a fetch type player. But I mean, outstanding players coming from that bench, and still some big boys, between Archie Snyman, John Klein, Oxenche, and Trevor Nyakane, even Marco van Staden, big guys coming on. So what do I think personally of this? I love it. I love the fact that the Springboks are challenging, the rugby norms and saying, we do what we want to do. We do our own calculated risks, and we will stand by our decisions. And if it backfires on them, it backfires on them. But I don't even think where Springbok Rugby is at the moment with the form they have, I just feel that even as fans, we won't be that upset if this blows up in their faces and they get 2 injuries in the back. It's almost like they say, when you're in form, or when luck is coming your way as a sportsman, it just seems to come off more and more and more. And the more you get confidence, the more you take risks, and the more they just pay off. It's a strange kind of risk-reward system that works when you are in form. And this is what I'm seeing from the Springboks, a risk-reward system, calculated risks. They get the rewards and they keep building the form, and they keep building the form, and they build the depth, and they build the belief in all these players, because they're playing a whole lot of players in different positions. They've got so many combinations going, and I like where the Springboks, I did not like what they were doing 2 years ago when they were playing players out of positions, but with time these guys have gotten themselves in position now where the changes that they're making no longer has the same impact. So even if players are playing out of position, it's not that serious, because they got so much depth to cover those positions if those players are not playing well. And that's why I think I'm really excited as a Springbok. I think the Irish are going to be worried. They are going to be concerned about a team like this facing them in this game. Only thing for me is I would have felt that I would have rather loved to see a Pollard as the utility back from the bench. But obviously, like a lot say, he's still maybe not totally right for, maybe having to come on for a full second half. So they're going with Kobus Reinach, wanting to give him the time to get into, his swing of things. But other than that, I'm quite happy with this team. I like the 7-1 split. I like the way they're challenging everything. And let's just be honest, if it goes like most games go and you don't have 2 injuries in the back line, you're going to have such a big impact with these forwards. Guys, if you enjoyed my video, please hit the subscribe button below. I'm going towards that 2,000 subscriber mark, and every single one of you hitting that subscribe button gets me closer. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.